Coming up on the Empowered Woman podcast.
Space to learn from one another, to pick each other's brains, to explore new ways of doing things in this setting of people who agree that there should be some harmonious components. Like it shouldn't be all work, it shouldn't be all that. We're mission driven, aligned.
Welcome to the Empowered Woman podcast, the #1 show on visibility strategies for women entrepreneurs. If you want to get empowered to be seen, stand out on social media, stages, TV, and more to make an impact with your voice and business, you're in the right place. I'm so glad that you're here. My name is Marcia Spurk, and I'm your host, professional singer and visibility strategist. Welcome again, and let's dive into today's episode.
Looking for an inspiring read? Everyday Magic is a book that teaches mindfulness through ritual and gratitude practices that can be done every day at any age. Purchase your copy today on Amazon.
Hi, Amy. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Hi, Martha. It's so nice to be here. Thank you for having me.
Yes, of course. I'm super excited to hear all about the goodness that you're creating out there, especially for moms, busy moms. Why don't you tell us who you are and what you do?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so I'm Amy. I am a work-life harmony coach and advocate. So basically got into this work by being in HR and seeing that there just felt like a support gap. I would see employees come back to work and just kind of not be fully supported where they have all of the responsibilities and demands that they're juggling at home. That led me to get certified as a life and leadership coach, but I did a lot of business coaching where I fell in love with connecting entrepreneurial moms to their passion, to their purpose, and allowing them to work and live more optimally.
Oh, I love the journey. I love that you started seeing the gap for that and then transitioned into, I'd love to hear a little bit more in depth about the story of the transition because we all know it's not an overnight thing and there are challenges along the way. So can you share a little bit more about that transition?
Yeah, absolutely. So basically in HR, I did notice that when people returned to work, they just kind of weren't raising their hands for as many challenging projects, the things that they're capable of. But with so many new demands that they're figuring out at home, it kind of felt like a lot of people, not all, but a lot of people kind of took a step back in some capacity. And then over years in HR, I would see pay gap, I would see a gap with title changes and that kind of a thing. So I really just wanted to be able to support people more one-on-one to really build out a support that didn't really feel like it fully existed. So jump forward to me doing business coaching and supporting people. I just noticed not only that when entrepreneurs have more control and ownership over what they can build and how they utilize their time, I feel like that was one part that was really beneficial and impactful to the moms who I coach, but also the impact it had on me. Like when we would get to not even sometimes all the way through the year, but sometimes in October, some of my clients were hitting their annual goals and deciding, I know what they want to do with the rest of the year. Do they want to maximize more time off? Do they want to start strategizing and getting ahead for the next year? Just kind of celebrating those milestones, but also helping people to achieve something that they only dreamt about. They weren't sure if it was possible, envisioning it out and helping to create and support people along the way is just something I just live for it.
Yeah, that is so rewarding. I love that. And I love that you're talking about learning to manage your time because I think that is a challenge regardless of what your professional life looks like, right? Because some people work corporate, but they still bring work home and it's still a challenge. And then you have entrepreneurs that can make their own hours. And then that's also a challenge because they're just working nonstop. And it's not because somebody's telling them, it's because they feel that pressure and at times even the passion of, wanting to make it work. And I love that you help women balance that out, especially as they have other responsibilities as moms. And I know that there is the elusive term work-life balance. I know you focus more on work-life harmony. Tell us more about how you guide your clients and how you do it yourself as well.
Yeah.
To finding that balance and prioritizing time to the point where you're hitting your goals even before the year is done.
Absolutely. And that's the thing. I feel like the differentiation between harmony and balance really came up from my clients more than anything. When I would try to support people and their goal was more balance, that idea of a scale where like you can load up a scale to no
Yeah.
end, and it's just kind of like, okay, you keep trying. And the balance sometimes didn't really feel attainable. What felt like it made more sense to me was more of a chart, a pie, where there's a fixed amount of space within that. Like you can only have 75% one way of how that time is defined.
Right.
So it just seemed to really resonate for people a lot more, where we're thinking of 100% of something and what is realistic, especially for the people I tend to coach. They do a lot and maybe aren't giving themselves all of the credit for what they
Right.
do. So it's nice to just have that visual of, okay, but what is 100%? And if you've loaded it up fully, what can we remove? How can we adjust? Knowing that one season, what you give, 75% to might look different than the upcoming season, and that's okay.
Mhm. Yeah, absolutely. And like you said, it depends on the person and it's very individual. And I think that's where sometimes we struggle is that we're trying to follow somebody else's schedule or somebody gives you a tip of you got to wake up at 5 and you got to do this and you got to do that. But every person's reality is so unique. And that's why working with somebody like you is very helpful. Now, do you work with specific types of entrepreneurs or moms? Who is the ideal person? Who is tends to be the woman that you attract?
Yeah, so the entrepreneurial mom who tends to work with me is driven, is very values based and mission oriented. And I think that what we're talking about really leads me to think about just how you how you spend your time and pouring into others, though noble, it can be challenging to kind of take that step back and make sure that you have everything you need and your own well-being is cared for. And so those are the people who, if they're really mission driven, passionate, pouring into their communities, pouring into their families, it's like, wait a minute, like at what point do you take a step back and really evaluate, like, are you getting poured into, or do you have everything you need to then go out and fulfill all that you're doing for others and
Hmm.
what's important to you. So that really tends to be the common goal, is that most people, yeah, most people are focused on serving others and kind of
Yeah.
feel your drive to serve.
I love that. Well, and besides helping women with the structure, right? This is how you're going to use your time. I know that a huge part of this work is also the mindset because
Mm,
you can come up with all the strategy and all of the plans, but if you're not willing to implement them, and sometimes not even being willing, but there's some kind of block or something that
mm,
keeps you from getting there, then it's not going to get done. And I know as a coach myself, this comes about. You give people directions and action tasks, and then week after week it doesn't get done. Then it's not about the plan or the task itself, it's
mm.
something else. So, how do you work with women, especially when it comes to mindset shifts? And what is one important mindset shift that you think gets overlooked in the process of this work-life harmony?
Hey, let me ask you a question. Would you like to be my next guest on the Empowered Woman podcast? Do you have a story you'd like to share? Want more visibility for your business on a show ranked in the top 0.5% in the world? Well, then head on over to martasburke.com/podcast guest for more information.
I do. I love the way that you describe that as just the block. And
Mm,
so much of the time we think about that inner chatter or that sometimes negative
Mhm.
thing that's holding us back. And
Yeah.
so I definitely, with all of my clients, whether it's one-on-one, whether it's in my community group, give
Hmm.
people access to, it's called a saboteur assessment, where it just kind of walks them through their limiting beliefs, some of the
Yeah.
self-chatter, because it's so powerful to define some of these things so that you can take the first step of you've identified it. How are
Mhm.
you going to plan? How are you going to manage? And so I definitely think that's a huge part of it. But the other thing, it's funny, your question makes me think too about the balance of these attributes. I mean,
Mm.
genuinely, they tend to stem from a good place of
Yeah.
protecting yourself
Right.
of a beneficial attribute. But to an extreme, when you're thinking about being a high achiever, or a
Yeah.
hard worker, for example, it's like, but then you're a workaholic, you're missing out on other important things. And
Mm.
so I would say that, to answer your question, is a big thing about an important mindset shift is to self-manage all
Mhm.
of your attributes. And even
Right.
if something is beneficial, make sure that it's not being blown to an extreme where it kind of throws everything off of balance.
That's such a good point. There are benefits, and that's why we are the way we are because it serves us in some capacity, right? But then when it's exacerbated or when it's getting out of hand to the point where it's harming us,
Mhm.
then it's a moment to stop and reflect. So, and you have a link for this saboteur's assessment as well.
Yeah, I would love to make sure that your listeners have access and at least the saboteur assessment. It's quick. It's like a 10-15 minute
Nice.
self-assessment. And if they'd like, I also welcome them to book a complimentary discovery session so that we can really deep dive and go one step further.
I love that. So, and back to what we were saying, seeing how you are uniquely made and what are your unique challenges to then finding that harmony and learning how to work with yourself and not against yourself as you're building your empire with your business and being a mom at the same time, right? I love that. Tell us how you work with women because I know you have a community.
Mhm.
You work more one-on-one. How can people find out more?
Yeah. And just going off of what you said too, just adding that giving yourself the freedom to think
Mm,
about what your ideal looks like, what you're building, because I feel like there is pressure to kind of conform to one thing. But how people can work with me is I have a harmonious moms community, really excited about that, just offering a space where people are driven and are already going to roll up their sleeves and figure out a path, but I do feel like that community space to learn from one another, to pick each other's brains, to explore new ways of doing things in this setting of people who agree that there should be some harmonious components. Like it shouldn't be all work, it shouldn't be all
right.
that. We're mission driven, aligned, and so it just helps people to go further faster, to hear those ideas, to have that common space of figuring out how you're going to strategize. I find that a lot of the communities for moms are more mom forward
Yeah.
and not necessarily the mom's goals or what they want to achieve. So that's what the space is.
I love that. So is that something that's monthly? It's a monthly membership. How can people join?
Exactly. So I'll make sure there's a link with more information. But yes, it's a monthly model. So basically able to have access to expert speakers and to accountability meetings, and a resource library, but just making it a space where you're welcome to dig in and knowing that you're not going to make it to everything every single month, and that's okay, but it's here for you. You can engage with the community to whatever degree makes sense according
Mhm.
to the season. Like, want to leave space for
Right.
that.
Yeah, absolutely. Because everybody's going through a different season and seasons change and it's okay. It's important to give ourselves grace. And then, like you said, if people want to move into working one-on-one, they could schedule that free consultation, especially after doing the saboteur assessment and talk to you a little bit further.
Absolutely. If someone knows they really want to like deep dive and get some more personalized attention, it's personalized across the board. But of course, that deeper dive touch would be the personalized coaching experience.
I love that. Amazing. We'll make sure and have all of those links in the show notes so people can connect with you. What is next for you? Do you have any big plans for the upcoming months? Anything else that you got going on besides the community and helping women in this way?
Yeah, I feel like September is kind of like a lot of parents can take a deep breath and kind of get back a little into some routine, some sense of normalcy. So just really looking to pour into my people, give them that support, the stability that they need, and especially thinking about just the year and how things go is setting up for a strong Q4, setting up for a strong new year, and paying attention to those cycles for them and for myself.
Absolutely. As you were saying that, I was like, yes, big sigh of relief because summer has been a long summer. This is the first summer that I've had my kids full time. They did do like a week here and there of some camps, but
Yeah.
typically I would have them in summer camp all month long. So it's
Okay.
definitely a big change, but we made it and it
There
was
you
a good
go.
one. So I'm proud of myself for the harmony there.
Absolutely. Absolutely. That's incredible.
Yeah. Well, before I have you share with us how people can connect with you and where you hang out the most, I like asking all of my guests what I call my $1 million question. Are you ready?
Absolutely.
Amy, what is an empowered woman to you?
Yes. So, an empowered woman to me is a woman who's in love with the life that she's created. So, knowing it's not always going to be perfect, bumps come along in the road, to be expected, but to know that you can take a step back and just feel like you're proud of how you're living, how you're showing up, how you're handling the bumps when they do come up. Yeah, that when I think about my clients and my favorite clients, like that's really the standout to me.
hmm This makes me think of I had a friend who put up a post on LinkedIn, and it made me think of something I had already been discussing in my own mind and coaching myself through. Because at times we look at somebody else's life and we may envy a piece of their life, but it
Mhm.
doesn't mean that we envy their entire life because
Mhm.
we wouldn't want to have their life. And I
Yeah.
feel like that's something that's been helpful to me at times when I think, oh, they have a what looks like to be a nice marriage or business or kids, and it's like, yeah, but I wouldn't want their entire life, which
Mhm.
means I like my life. There are certain things that are not always, 100%, but that's just the way that it is. And that speaks to what you just said. Love the life that you have, love the life that you've created. And I think there's more room for that, for us to look at our own reality and
Mhm.
realize that the grass is not greener on the other side. We get to cultivate our own grass and love what we have.
Yeah, and there's a sense of ownership into making the decisions of what you create and having that the power over your destiny to some extent. But I completely agree with what you said. Sometimes someone idolizes someone in business or that kind of a thing, and meanwhile their marriage is in shambles or some other thing. So agree.
Yeah, focus on your own life. And it goes back to the ownership and also feeling empowered, right? You have the power to create what you have.
Mm.
You've created what you have so far. So if you don't like it, you have the power to change it. That's so good. I love it. I love what you're doing out there for women. Tell us how people can connect with you. Where do you hang out the most?
Yeah, so I'm active on LinkedIn. I'm active on Instagram. Instagram, it's Coaching with Amy. On LinkedIn, it's just Amy Pierre-Russo. And so happy to, there's links on my website. You can check out my blog, anything like that. But yeah, I'd love to connect and just, support people even a step deeper.
Amazing. And I'll make sure and have that all in the show notes. And I know you put out amazing content out there for people to be encouraged, but you also have all of the other opportunities for them to connect with you. Thank you so much, Amy. This was awesome.
Thank you, Marta. I appreciate it.
Thanks so much for tuning in today. I hope this episode empowered you. And if you enjoyed the show, please join the Empowered Woman community on Facebook and share with friends or leave a review on iTunes so more people can discover this empowering message. Until next time, bye.